This is the Bema Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we are joined by Josh Bossé to begin a series on the tabernacle of Exodus and the parallels it has to the creation story, turning those principles into tangible practices.
The Bossé anthology. We've made it to another one, Brent.
I think I should maybe clarify what I just said in the intro. We are not turning the spiritual principles of the creation story into tangible practices. The tabernacle is what did that. And you could read what I said that way, but you could also read it unfavorably with a bad eye.
That's true.
Making us...
Nobody would do that to us, Brent. Nobody would read us with a bad eye.
I hope people don't think that we think that we're more important than we are at this point. I hope we've made it clear.
Well, that's the thing, Brent. Well, what we'll be learning is that there's not actually much of a difference between those things. The Mishkan is there, the tabernacle is there to do it, so we can do it too. That's the point.
That's the kind of redemption that we are about on the Bema Podcast.
Yeah, God's not interested in building cool little dioramas. God's always about something more. So,
all right, I like this.
Well, I rescind everything I said then.
Well, listen, you get to edit this, so that's entirely
no. We're leaving this conversation in. It's
all
beautiful.
Right,
it's beautiful.
So, this series, we're going to dive deeper into an idea that I'm pretty sure the podcast has talked about before, which is that the creation of the tabernacle parallels very exactly the creation story found in Genesis 1. We've talked about that before, right?
Absolutely. It was key, and I'm glad we're starting there. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we appreciate about Josh is he comes in and he says, we talked about this and almost, let's make it so much better. And I just love it. It makes me so giggly. So yes, that is what we said. And now we're going to take it somewhere even more beautiful.
Yes. So, normally, just to kind of give the audience a peek behind the curtain, I may have even mentioned this in our Tohu Vavohu episode.
Was that a pun?
No, that'll be a pun for next episode. So I may have mentioned this in our Tohu Vavohu episode, but I've taught this material before. It's different now that I've been looking at it with new eyes, probably more than 5 years later. But nevertheless, I went through this material before in a study, and it was really, really deep and impactful, which is one of the reasons why this was my go-to for my anthology. But that teaching took me. I took a small group with it through an entire summer. We spent 14 weeks dissecting all this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be skimming over. And to do that, I'm going to try and keep myself to a pretty, not rigid, but like a rhythm, a pretty tight rhythm. And so we're first going to dip into the day of creation. And this is where I'm going to have to summarize a lot. So if you have any questions about how I get to the conclusions I get to, you know where to find me. You can email me. You can find me on Slack.
I'm not going to hesitate to stop you if it's me. If I have questions, I'm going to be like, all right, hold on.
That's fine. Well, we'll get into the rabbit trails, but there's a lot of stuff we could be talking about in Genesis 1 that I'm going to be summarizing as much as possible. I'm not going to be waxing as eloquent because the real, as cool as those spiritual principles are, and I think there's so much storytelling going on even beyond what we've already uncovered in Genesis 1. There's just more and more and more layers. What I'm looking for is to look at how in Exodus, when Moses goes up the mountain, the very first thing God talks to him about is this. We're going to read the first thing God has to say to Moses when they're alone on the mountaintop, speaking face to face, and looking at first of all, kind of uncovering why this is the most important thing to God and what that tells us about how to incarnate these things, which I think as Jesus followers should pretty much always be our agenda. How do we incarnate it? How can we make this real? So without further ado,
I'm in. I'm ready.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Brent, let her rip. Let's hear it with the Bereshit bara Elohim.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day.
Yep, that's it. That's the very beginning of the whole thing we call the Torah. And what we're going to be doing, like the way I'm going to kind of dissect this so it's neat and it doesn't get into too many rabbit trails, is we're just going to boil this down to the most like rudimentary literary chunks. So like what are the elements of this story? What is God interacting with, and how is God interacting with it? So, I think this one is pretty obvious. What are the two story elements here outside of God?
I'm going to assume light and darkness. Don't know if I'd throw water in there too, but like light and darkness seem to be the dominant ideas here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We could get into the water, but that would lead into rabbit trails. So yeah, light and darkness, that's what this day is all about. And then how does God interact with each of these? With the darkness, God is hovering, right? Merachefet, as we once talked about.
Yep.
And then what is God doing with light? Like how does God engage with light?
He names it.
Calls it into being. Yeah, I like that. Names
that's true. He calls it into being first, but then he names it.
Yes, and this is the first moment of God's speech. And as we'll see through the rest of the creation story, like God does a lot of creating by saying like, hey, let this happen, let that happen. This is the only time where it's like this like intimate and pure of God saying, let there be light, and there was light. In the Hebrew, it's literally Vayomer Elohim Yehi Or Vayahi Or. It's like there's this kind of perfect mirroring. Yehi Or Vayahi Or. Like it just happened. It's like pure expression. It's not this God talking to different parts. It's not building on something God already created. This is something new. And then like what kind of happens towards the end of that? Like obviously we have the naming. We're not going to get too much into the naming of the days because that would also lead us on a rabbit trail. But what happens with dark and light? What else does God do with them like as a unit?
Well, he seems to put them in so light has a place and darkness has a place. There's going to be day and night. Exactly.
We have separation, but not just separation. It's not like they're just put in two different buckets. They work in a cycle. There's a relationship between them, and
he orders them.
Yes, brings order to them. So in that, God is creating a kind of dance between light and darkness. It's not just, oh, there was light and that was awful. Sorry. Let me try that again. There was dark and God said, oh, that's awful. Let's get some light in here. And then we just move on with the universe full of light. Both are maintained, and they become, not only do they become part of a cycle for all of creation, but they even become part of this literary cycle, because every single day of creation ends with evening, morning. This is, to me, the text is saying what's happening in day one is seen in every single day.
It's like the foundational building block of where we're going to get creation started. We won't have creation without this tension that we have turned into the parameters of the whole thing.
Right. Exactly. Now let's go back through now that we have kind of the elements laid out. We have God hovering over darkness, God speaking light into existence, and then God bringing these things into a kind of a cyclical dance. So for a human being, just like a human being, contrary to what we normally do with Bema, like just a human being ripped out of context, just a little naked guy out in the wilderness, like what does darkness and light mean to that guy? Like darkness is, well, I mean, we could say it's dangerous. We could say it's not advantageous, but really he can't see anything, right? He doesn't know what's around him.
It's a time of sleeping because you really can't. I mean, you don't have a whole lot else at your disposal.
Right. Exactly. The sleeping is there. Yeah. Like you said, kind of as a default, because it's like, what else are you going to do? But we also have a lot of fear there because we don't know. We don't know what's out there. And, like when I was thinking about the theme of this episode, the theme is truth, but like not truth as we normally talk about it in like Greek, Hellenistic, Socratic ideal. Like there's one correct thing. It's relational truth. And when you're in darkness, you don't have any kind of sense of your relationship to the things. You don't know if there's a cliff edge 2 feet in front of you. You don't know if there's a predator out in the bushes. You don't know. You don't know what time it is.
Yep.
Yeah. On that idea of relationship, when you first said, what are the 2 elements of this story? My first thought was, you have, like, as the NIV suffers, you have 2 paragraphs, and that first paragraph is like a scene setting, and then the second paragraph is God entering the scene. But now that I'm looking at it again in that context, it's like, no, God was already in the scene. He was hovering over the waters, or the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters, if you want to make that Trinitarian distinction, I guess. And so it's not really God entering the scene, but it is God bringing the scene to life in that he speaks, he breaks the silence. There's a lot of like interconnected relationship going on here with these parts of the story too.
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, like, think about what God's interaction is saying to that person in the dark, like when we jump into this tangible version of this story. Like, God's saying, okay, you can't see anything around you. You don't know which way is up. We could make this more broadly applicable to our lives today. Like, when you don't know what's going on around you, when you are like, don't have any idea what your relationship is with other people or with the world or what the future looks like, God is telling you that God's there. God's hovering above it. You may not be able to reach out and touch it. You may not be able to positively see it, but nevertheless, God wants you to know that. And I think that's important for understanding the next thing God does, which is that God brings light into existence with speech, which, like, if I'm thinking about this God character creating everything, we have darkness here. We could ask the question, well, how did the darkness get there? Obviously, like, whatever we mean by darkness, if there's anything separate from God, God created it, right? Like, that's just good, solid theology. So why did God create the darkness and, like, not really talk about it and gloss over it and then spend all this time talking about bringing light into existence? Like, when we think about speaking, like, what is speech? If we're going to get really philosophical here, what is speech?
The words behind them.
It's the incarnation of an idea.
Yeah, and the idea, the reason why you have to get it out with speech is because it's inside of you, and they can't see inside of you. So it's self-expression. It's you, bringing something inside of you out. It's self-disclosure. So it's like God saying, like, hey, I know you're in this, big nasty world, and it's dark and it's scary and you don't always know what's happening, and I'm with you. But if you want to know about me, I bring light. That's who I am. Yeah, like there's this darkness too. I created all of it. I created the predator in the night. I created the day-night cycle. Like I did do all that. But if you really want to know who I am, it's light. I'm trying to bring light. I'm trying to help you see the truth of, oh, look, this is a little rocky outcropping. I can find some shelter under there. Oh, I can look at these berries and see if they're poisonous or not. That sort of stuff. Like that. This is God saying really clearly, like, this part is me. There's a lot in creation. Like, a lot of people, in philosophy, we talk about the problem of evil, but it's really foundational to us as humans. Like, good God, I want to believe in that. Bad things happen. What's up with that? And this is God, like, addressing that. And again, like, not in a logical way, in a relational way. God saying, like, yeah, those other things exist. I'm still there, but that's not me. That's not what I want in the world. If I get to bring what I want into the world, it's light. It's understanding.
Well, even if like as you say that, but even God speaking, bringing light, also brought order to the darkness. Like prior to this, like I've heard some rabbinic thought talk about, like, the tohu vavohu was like this unseparated. It was light and darkness. It was just chaos. It was everything together. And so like, it wasn't that it was darkness that existed before day one. it was chaotic, crazy tohu vavohu-ness that existed. And by God bringing light, not only is light the goodness, but it also orders the darkness.
Yes.
So that there's a structure to that relationship. Even that is somewhat, I mean, if I'm considering a cosmos and chaos, even the construct of light and darkness in a dance is, I don't know if reassuring.
Oh yeah.
But it speaks peace to, like, light isn't just the light itself. It's that the light also orders everything that's not light.
Yes.
By its mere presence and the cycle that God creates.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I actually really want to stress that, because those are both two individual things. I think it's not just light equals order, and when we have light, we have order. Like, on a fundamental human level, there's a reason why we normally associate light with good things. And it's because it helps us, like, more than anything, we're primarily visual. And if we can see something, we can understand it. We can have that truth relationship with it a little bit better.
Hold on, Josh, you're blowing my mind. Because if I think of, like, somebody hearing this story for the very first time, and you hear a story that starts with chaotic craziness, like, how many of us today, even, like, not even some primitive person hearing Genesis 1 for the first time, but you think about just existence and life and struggle, and you're like, chaos, oh yeah, I can relate to that. But God comes and speaks light and order and dance into that. Like, I just had to slow down and not run past that. I think there's this, we've talked about this before, but what's ultimately true about the universe? Is it chaotic craziness? And I love that you made the observation, Brent did as well, that was already present in the chaos. It's not like God became present when light became present.
Yes.
It's that God was already present no matter what was here. But when God started to create a world that we live in, he brought some sense of order and beauty into this, and I love the word dance. I'm just going to keep saying dance, so I'm just going to stop and let you get back to what you were saying.
Well, and I'm also thinking, like, the idea of God's voice, like, his spirit is there, but it's just hovering. And there's darkness, and, like, yes, there is a visual element to light and darkness, but God's presence is really represented at that point by his speech.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the idea of voice being so important throughout the rest of scriptures, and like, of course, because that's how God first, like, manifested his presence in a more, like, again, Spirit of God was hovering. It's not like he wasn't there, but, like, the first, like, the most concrete manifestation of his presence at that point was his voice speaking into creation.
Yes.
And then, at the end of the story, God's image appears in the creation through the man and woman he created. But God's still not there in that same, like, tangible sense. Like, it's still about his voice at that point.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I don't even know, but I'm just reeling about the idea of, like, I guess I don't know that I never consciously considered that those were God's first words, because it's like, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's like, okay, well, God's already doing stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like. But then when you step back, it's like, no, he didn't actually say anything until verse 3. And so it's like, so yeah, I've all sorts of, my mind is also being blown at this point. So I don't have any real coherent thoughts, but I just have lots of things running through my mind right now.
Rabbit trails indeed.
Exactly. You can see how this is so hard to get through quickly. Luckily this one is going to be a little shorter than future ones. So we have the margin to do this, but,
that was Josh's way, Brent, of telling us, don't do this next episode, guys.
I mean, no, we're going to do it next episode. I can't help it either. We'll just go long. But going back to what you kind of started feeling out, Marty, about, like, it's not just like there's also order that comes with it. I want to prize those two things apart, because this is a distinction I'm getting at. Like we've just been talking about, God's first self-expression being light tells us about who God is. Now, to God, light and dark, it doesn't really affect God all that much. Like, I mean, it doesn't the scripture say that darkness is like light to God? So, this isn't for God. Why does God put this into an order? The order, the dance, when we think of a dance is partnership, right?
Right. Two parties.
The dance is what allows us to get our hands around light and dark. It isn't God just coming in and saying, oh, there we go, I fixed everything, I turned the lights on. It's God inviting us to participate in wrangling creation, in wrestling with it, in figuring out how to ride that rhythm. You know what I'm saying?
I do love the word participation.
Yeah, there we go. And not only that, the other thing I want to throw in here, especially since we've been talking about light, is that vision is what connects. God sees that it's good, right? When we have God's light, we can actually recognize what's good around us. When we're in times that are chaotic, I'm not sure if any of you've noticed that in the past couple of years when things have been kind of chaotic, but sometimes it's hard to know the difference between things that are good and things that are bad, and things that you're just doing out of habit and things that you're actually doing intentionally because you actually want or need to do those things. It's a lot harder to distinguish when everything's just crazy all the time and you're just surviving from one moment to the next. And it's only when you have that light and that ability to recognize and say, oh, this is good. That is, I think, kind of what God is framing light as. Like, it's not just some practical thing. Mm-hmm. It's God says, I want you to see so you can see what is good. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so we have this painting, very similar to everything we've talked about with the story. God made creation good. God wants us to see the goodness of creation. God is inviting us to see that both in the darkness and in the light. We're being invited to partner, like all these things that, to any BAML listener should just be like, you probably filled out your bingo card by now. But now we're going to get into the real juice. We're going to get into the real juice, and we're going to see how these ideas are expressed in the Mishkan, which is the name for the tabernacle, the Mishkan, which literally means dwelling place. And I'll be using that word a lot, so get used to it. Mishkan. We're going to go and look at the Mishkan, the very first thing that God wants to talk to Moshe about when Moshe treks up Mount Sinai. And that's going to be in Exodus 25. So, Brent, why don't you take it away?
I was actually listening to the Bible Project. They had a series on Exodus, and 3 of the episodes covered the tabernacle. And they were talking about the parallels with Genesis 1. But they were talking about the idea of the garden. Well, there was Eden being the larger area, and then there was a garden in Eden, and then there was the tree in the center. And then they were talking about this Sinai experience of the Israelites being at the mountain, and then the small group going halfway up the mountain, and then Moses going all the way up the mountain.
Actually, I'm glad you brought this up. It's not going to be so important for this particular episode, but it's going to be very important for this series as a whole. So I do want to. That's a great thing.
Well, I'll link that episode too if anyone wants to listen to it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they've got some great stuff that would probably. If I had the presence of mind to steal from them, it would have made this better, I'm sure.
Well, see,
alas.
they have their podcast, which is like hour-long episodes going into great detail, like we do here. But they also have their much more succinct videos that are.
That's true.
I honestly don't know how they can boil things down into the 10 minutes that they do. It's a work of art to do that.
It's a skill. Those are talented guys over there with some great insights. But the thing I want to talk about is, there is kind of a sort of fractal aspect to everything we're going to talk about here. So it's like we could look at Mishkan, for example, we could look at this as like a communal thing, right? And we could also look at it as an individual thing. And those things both work. And we could look at this as like, oh, there's a relationship between God and Moses and the people. Or we could look at it as the relationship between, like we've talked about before, there's the high priest and the Levites and the people, and then the Gentiles. There's so many ways you could divide up these relationships, and these principles bear out regardless of where you divide those. Like, we could talk about all this stuff as how we have a conversation with the world, like as a Christian body, or as we could talk about it as like how we as individual spiritual communities do this with the place that we're in, or how you do this in individual relationships. Like, in that same way, these things kind of all reflect that. So to go back to what you were saying, Brent, like, what we're going to see in here is so many divisions. Like, I'll get into next episode, but there's so many ways you could divide things that will create kind of like this, this relationship that can be reflected in a lot of different directions. So that's just something to keep in mind for all of this, particularly when we get to the areas that talk about the priests, because that kind of gets into spiritual authority, and we'll talk about that then. But yeah, that's a great thing we touched on there.
Yeah, just mentioning Exodus 25 and Moses, going up, the first thing that he hears from God, it's like, if there's anything that Bema has taught me, it's like, okay, well, what was going on before this? It's like, well, even the lead up to this story actually reflects the Genesis 1 story. So yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, Exodus 25 then?
Yep. Well, let's get into it.
The Lord said to Moshe, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You are to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. These are the offerings you are to receive from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red and another type of durable leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and breastpiece. Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them. Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you."
All right, so there's not a ton to talk about here. I think this chunk here, kind of like what you were saying, Brent, there's this little preamble in Genesis 1 where it talks about, like, kind of God created the heavens and the earth, and there's the tohu and the bohu and all that stuff. This is kind of the setup for it. But one thing I just wanted to point out in particular is there's a particular Hebrew word toward the end when God's saying you should make the tabernacle according to the design that I'll show you, the design of the tabernacle, the design of all its specific vessels. And the Hebrew word is tavnit, and I'll probably include that in the a little image of that in the presentation. But it'll be important for this episode because that word, I guess no one's probably reading their Bible in Hebrew, but if you are, props to you, and pay attention when that word comes up again, because it'll give us a little bookend just to throw that out there.
But if you are, good work.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about your situation. That would be cool. Are there any other thoughts that hit you guys? I didn't want to cut off this part of the text. I think there's some interesting things we could dive into here. I don't necessarily want to for the sake of time and because it's kind of a drier passage, but is there anything that stuck out?
I was just connecting it to the preamble in Genesis, and I was wondering, my mind was just going in a million directions about they're getting ready to create something. They're having to pull the pieces together that they're going to order, separate, fill with. Mm-hmm. They need offerings. Like, my brain started going like, okay, what about this idea of the divine council and the angelic beings that are with God at creation?
Oh, sure.
Are they the ones that are bringing things as he starts to call order into chaos?
Yeah.
I was just, it does fit to me. Like, it feels like, okay, this is the same energy. It's the same kind of preamble. Mm-hmm. I'm tracking with that. Absolutely.
Here, man, I'm gonna pull a Marty on you. What if we had that same relationship? We read it the same direction the Bible goes. What if, so God starts creation, right? And there's all this chaos. And here we get this just list of ingredients. We don't know how any of it's going to go together. Like, what if that's the chaos that God has? God just pops all this stuff into existence and then is slowly ordering it.
Yep.
And that's what makes things chaotic, in the same way that we see all this and we're like, okay, we've got metal, we've got yarn, we've got skins, we've got wood, like, this is a lot. What's this going to become? And not only that, the one other thing I want to point out with this is that they talk about this being a raised up portion. And so what that indicates here is that this is all voluntary giving. And I think as we start this, it's really important to talk about that, because like this is God doing a new thing to create a radically new kind of partnership in the world. And as we're going through this, as we talk about like really tangible stuff, I don't want anyone to get into the mindset of like, oh, this is the way. This is like my obligation to drop everything and do this now. And I think like, I think we all, to some extent, would want to do this at some level, but we are only supposed to bring what we feel called to bring. Like we use the ingredients we have. We bring what we feel would make the space that God's calling us to make. So just to throw that out at the beginning, this is not supposed to be some big overarching, like obligatory thing. This is just supposed to be I know we get a lot of questions about the very popular episode about making space for God. That's what we're getting into here. This is the nitty gritty of literally making space for God.
Right. Sure.
So that's the mindset I want everyone to have. Not like this is the most essential recipe, but rather like this is God inviting us to see God inviting us to like cheat off the notes of like creation. I'm like, okay, this is what it would look like in our context.
The one thing that stuck out to me was make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you.
Yes. Yeah, that pattern is the word tavnit that I was talking about.
Yeah.
What's your question there?
I'm just trying to imagine what this was like for Moshe as it's not like God is taking to him to an entirely different tabernacle that's like,
sure.
It's not like he's taking him into the future. Like, here's how it's going to be. Make sure you build it like this. It's a pattern. It's different. It's not exactly what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. But I'm just.
I'll tell you that when we get to the end of the chapter, when this word comes up again, it will be a lot clearer about why God is so, God uses the word twice, like why God is so hung up on Moses, like following the pattern exactly. There's a reason for that.
Well, and the Hellenistic school is going to make a bunch of mileage out of this. And they're going to actually push against that idea and say that is a lot of what Moshe's experience was. That's Hellenistic Judaism later, but that's what the book of Hebrews plays off of when it talks about an earthly tabernacle.
Oh, sure.
Modeled after a heavenly model and a heavenly pattern. Like, I think they would make the case that Moshe very well had a mystical experience where he saw a much more, and of course they're working with Plato and the idea of forms, and he got to get a glimpse of the heavenly reality and then depict it in an earthly way.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm just like, for me, my experience is like we go to Masada and they have a scale model of Masada at Masada.
I think Hellenism is going to argue a bit, like, and I guess this is later, this isn't where Josh is going, but just to be like, oh, don't shut that thought down and be like, well, that's definitely not what's going on. I think what you picture there is what, at least at some points of history, Judaism is going to say, no, that's the right kind of image. That's the right kind of idea.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see what Josh does with Tavnit at the end.
Well, and stick around for the end of the episode, Marty.
But I don't plan on going anywhere.
One other thing, Brent, is that like a lot of times the entire tabernacle, rabbis talk about this a lot. Marty was telling me David Foreman has stuff about this, about the tabernacle being a body, like it kind of describing a kind of life form, or being a replica of a human body. And so I think when I think about it in those terms, is like, this isn't just about like a architectural blueprint. That's kind of what I'm trying to tap into here. Is like, we're not just talking about like how to measure your 2x4 so you get your Mishkan right. This is about like what is actually going on behind this, because God cares about this space. I don't think it's about, making sure they have an accurate measuring tape and good like engineering skills. I think there's something else going on here, and that is what God's telling Moses, like, don't lose this, these essential functioning parts. And that's where I'm going to be going with this. So if we want to dive into it, let's start in verse 10.
Okay. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Cast 4 gold rings for it and fasten them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law, which I will give you. Make an atonement cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide, and make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub on one end and the second cherub on the other. Make the cherubim of one piece with the cover at the 2 ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other, looking toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark and put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law that I will give you. There, above the cover between the 2 cherubim that are over the ark of the covenant law, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites.
Okay, so if we're thinking...
I don't really know that we really need to talk much about this. Like, Steven Spielberg already took care of it in Raiders of the Lost Ark, so let's just move on to the next section.
Definitely in terms of visuals, but no. Before we go on, if we have this day one, this kind of broken down day one story, what does the ark correspond to?
It's got to be the light, right?
Maybe. Okay. Could be the light. We haven't really heard them talk about light yet, though.
Well, that's true. I mean, God says he's going to give... Well, first of all, he says he's going to give them the tablets of the covenant law. But then at the end, he says...
That's
between...
not a super accurate translation.
Okay. Well, but
I'll get into that in a second, though.
At the end, he says, above the cover between the 2 cherubim, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the Israelites, which sounds like a speech-related thing, but I don't know. He doesn't explicitly say he's going to speak his commands. He says he will give them the commands.
Exactly.
It sounded to me like the Spirit hovering over the waters, like over the cover is where God's going to meet with them. That's or my brain went.
Yep, and we definitely have God's Spirit, God's presence being over the ark here.
Well, I'm going to say that's probably a translation issue in the NIV, because the NET translates it over the ark. I will speak with you about all that I command for the Israelites.
Yes, yeah, that is a translation thing, as it is with the tablets, because it doesn't say tablets or anything about the covenant yet. It just says I will the testimonies that I will give you, which it's not bad to assume that he's talking about the testimonial tablets, but I'm just going to guide it toward talking about testimonies as a more general idea. Mm-hmm. But let's think about this.
NET gets that one right too, by the way.
Oh, nice. Way to go, NET. So let's think about this. When God is hovering, when God's Spirit is hovering, and in fact, we might even, Merechef, it has this connotation of like wings fluttering, and we have some wings present here.
Yes.
What should be beneath God for thinking day one?
The darkness.
Water.
Or
right?
the water?
Yeah, darkness, dark
Yeah, okay,
chaos.
Yep.
And where would we, if we were in the tabernacle, and I said to you, think quick, there's the ark, where's the darkness in this room?
It's going to be in the box. It's
closed up with a lid. Box.
Yep.
Exactly. So what's inside the box?
Well, it's got now I don't know what to say. It's got the tablets, the testimonies. It's got the staff of Aaron. It's got the manna.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's got and all those things we could say, those are all testimonies. They all testify to something.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
And if we go back to thinking about that day one story, when you're in darkness, when you're inside the box and top is closed, and God's presence is hovering just outside, just on top of it. To you, you don't realize you're in a box that's, made of gold and
Sure.
God's presence is there. You just know it's a dark box. And what does God give you in there to help you? Reminders, testimonies, things that say, no, God was there. And we can even go into the specifics. The manna, like God gave you bread. And not just God gave you bread. God gave you bread. The bread was a test about Torah. It was these commandments God gave that fulfilled themselves. It was like God saying, like, I'm not trying to like force you to be obedient. I'm trying to like nourish you. I'm trying to help you feed yourself. We have the staff. We have, dead wood sprouting with new life. And we have, what tablets do we have in there, Marty?
Well, I mean, we have the tablets of Torah, the 10 Commandments.
But which ones?
You've stumped me. I feel like Brent Billings right now. I like this. This is good.
There's 2 pairs, right?
Yeah.
He has to remake them.
Right. Correct.
Which goes in there, the broken pair or the whole pair?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I'm like, I always assumed it's the first one or the second one, but it's the first.
I might be about to eat some crow. If memory serves, it's the broken pair. And to me, at least, that speaks, because what God's reminding them of is we still have a covenant, even though you're holding broken tablets, reminding you that you broke the covenant. Oof. But you still have them because I didn't call it off.
Oof. And those are good testimonies right there.
Yeah, exactly. When you're in the darkness, you need those testimonies to not just remember that God is there, but also like what kind of God is hovering just above you.
Well, I like what you said a moment ago. If you're in the box, you don't know that you're in a glorious box covered with gold. Mm-hmm. Just like when you're in the chaos of creation, like you don't know that it's actually a good creation, exactly. Ordered and stewarded by God. I like that.
Although in that case, it is about the darkness, because previously God said overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out. So the inside does have gold.
Yes.
But in the darkness, you don't even know that.
Exactly.
Yes. Right.
Well, that was rather lucky. We found some great connections there between day one. I hope the rest of this chapter continues to connect with day one.
I bet.
Let's go ahead and just see, just to try it out. Just to try it out. Humor me.
All right.
Let's keep going in verse. What are we? 23.
For your humor only, make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, a cubit wide, and a cubit and a half high. Overlay it with pure gold, and make a gold molding around it. Also make around it a rim a handbreadth wide, and put a gold molding on the rim. Make 4 gold rings for the table, and fasten them to the 4 corners, where the 4 legs are. The rings are to be close to the rim to hold the poles used in carrying the table. Make the poles of acacia wood, overlay them with gold, and carry the table with them, and make its plates and dishes of pure gold, as well as its pitchers and bowls for the pouring out of offerings. Put the bread of the presence on this table to be before me at all times.
What was that last part?
Bread of the presence.
Bread of the presence. Now, does this ring any bells with day one? We don't really have bread there.
Yeah, we don't have bread, but the presence, absolutely. And I don't know, I have all this, like, for me, the merahefet was like this. It was explained to me as a kiss. Which I know the rabbinic conversation about the bread of the presence, the table of the presence, is the table of faces, the panim. Like,
yes,
you're so close to each other in relationship that there's almost this relational kiss between faces, between presences, and that's where my brain went.
And yeah, you're right. That word surfaces also means faces, which is really important because, regardless of whether we look at it as a kiss or not, or all those precise things, it says God hovers over the face, the surface of the waters, and there's darkness upon the face of the deep. Like, face and surface is all through that story. So what does this add to that? Like, this is kind of keeping us in that moment where, like, God's presence is with us, but we're also we still have that darkness, even if it's just deep down. Like, there's that chaos that is just kind of ruling. We're still inside the box. What is God proposing here with this table? What does it do with that image?
Is it that the presence is what sustains us? Like, yes. Darkness or not, we find sustenance. We are
Yes.
sustained spiritually, holy by the presence of God with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's where the bread comes in, because the bread is your sustenance.
Yep. And it's saying, like, once you know God's presence is there, you can derive nourishment from that. And I know, like, in a lot of practical circumstances, this may not hold in the way that some of us might view that. Like, there's some, we have to navigate this a little bit to understand it practically. But when you're in chaotic situations, if you are actually, like, aware, like, not just believe, not just intellectually hold theology, but if you actually know that there is a presence that is there, that is for you, that brings life from death, that wants to feed you, like, there is something nourishing about that. There is something in that does get us through hard times, chaos, and that's really important here.
If you yada the presence, if you experientially know that.
And this builds upon the previous one, because the testimonies that they had were artifacts of yada. These were not just like
Right.
pieces of paper with ideas written on them. They were artifacts of, oh, this happened to me.
Right.
This happened to my people. We were here and this happened, and this tells me about it.
Yep.
And that is yada. And when you have that yada, then God's presence is itself bread, which, I mean, gosh, that also connects to that episode about John 6, man. About the bread of heaven.
Gonna have to go back and do a redux of the redux.
Yeah.
Well, and the Israelites would have already experienced the manna as like a bread connection with God. So, even tying it together that way, like, I would hope that's already a familiar image for them.
Absolutely. And I mean, well, I won't spoil it. Well, I'll wait until we get to the next part of this chapter, which, spoiler alert, is also going to, I think it's going to pretty tidily tie in with this whole
I think I see this one coming.
Yeah. This one's a little easier. I mean, Marty, you got the table on your first try, which I big props for that. But yeah, Brent, take it away from verse 31. Let's see if we just happen to be able to find the day one influence here.
We'll let Brent get this one. We'll give this softball to Brent.
Make a lampstand of pure gold, hammer out its base and shaft, and make its flower-like cups, buds, and blossoms of one piece with them. 6 branches are to extend from the sides of the lampstand, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. 3 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms are to be on one branch, 3 on the next branch, and the same for all 6 branches extending from the lampstand. And on the lampstand there are to be 4 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms. 1 bud shall be under the first pair of branches extending from the lampstand, a second bud under the second pair, and a third bud under the third pair, 6 branches in all. The buds and branches shall all be of one piece with the lampstand, hammered out of pure gold. Then make its 7 lamps and set them up on it, so that they light the space in front of it. Its wick trimmers and trays are to be of pure gold. A talent of pure gold is to be used for the lampstand and all these accessories. See that you make them according to the pattern shown you on the mountain.
There we go. All right, so Brent.
I think we should maybe say at this point that we don't necessarily have everything hammered out yet.
Nice pun.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't even mean to do that. We don't have the images figured out, but we are going to try to have some kind of presentation, because we're quickly getting into the, like, very repetitive, very, like,
oh yeah,
and like there's a purpose to that repetition, but we do realize, like, yeah, this is a little bit hard to listen to in some senses, and so to have a visual to go with it, so we're going to try to find some stuff that sort of illustrates, like, what this might even look like, because many people have taken this and have tried to recreate it or draw it or whatever. And so we're gonna try to find some references that you can look at to hopefully wrap your mind around what is happening here in a visual sense.
And on that note too, I don't want to scare any listeners. We will not be reading through every single chapter like this. There are chunks we are going to skip. Do not worry. This one in particular, it's a little bit shorter and relatively easier to grasp than the future chapters we got coming. But yeah, don't worry. We're not going to be slogging through this stuff. But yeah, with that being said, Brent, where's the day one in here?
So this one's all about light.
All about light, exactly. From top to bottom. But what else? What else do we hear in the design of the menorah? Like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of that about stems and buds and whatever else. Like, without getting lost in the specifics, what was the overall like aesthetic, if you're going to try and grasp it?
I think in the like vegetation side of it, like it's a flourishing situation, like buds and blossoms, like it's active, it's growing, it's flourishing. But the thing that sticks out to me the most is the fact that God emphasizes like, make it all one piece.
Yes.
These aren't like disparate pieces that we're shoving together. Like this should be one unified creation. So I don't know if that's what you're getting at, but
absolutely. And I mean, there's probably a lot we could dig into that. Like that kind of speaks to its connection with God's utterance. Like it's a single expression. It's something that's whole, that spreads out. But yeah, I want to go back to what you said before though, about the aesthetic. You said it was very organic, right? We have buds, we have branches, we have flowers.
Well, and I guess mimicking the design of Genesis 1, we have 3 branches on one side, 3 branches on the other side, and then a main branch on the top.
Yes. Now and man, I remember how I talked about earlier, like that kind of fractal nature of all this.
Oh, and it's 7 lamps. There's a lamp on every one, and we talked about how day 1 you have the light and the darkness, and that creates the day, but then that day ends up being a pattern that you see in every day of creation.
And that's not just for day 1. Like the same is true as I was going through this. It was like, oh man, you could also like, we could probably do this whole thing again. Might not be as long, but like using one day as the lens. Like we could interpret all of it through day 1 in the menorah, or we could interpret it through day 5 and the priestly sacrifices, which when we get to that, you'll see there's a lot of 7s in there. And so yeah, this whole thing, there's so much interconnection here. Like, please don't get overwhelmed. Like this is just, there's a lot of cool directions you can go. None of them are really wrong. But yeah, that's another good thing to point out. There is so much intentional interconnectedness here. But to go back to the image, again, without getting too caught up in the details, we have this, lampstand. I'm sure probably, most people listening to this have a vague picture in their head of a menorah, a candle stand with 3 branches coming out of each side. You got 7 on top. What is the general image of this whole thing?
Kind of feels like a tree.
Yeah, we got tree imagery. And what is maybe different between this golden tree and maybe if I was just gonna if I let's just say I was a metallurgist and I wanted to make a little golden tree, like what's the difference between any old golden tree and this golden tree looking thing?
It's got lamps on top of it.
It's got lamps on top of it. So, and specifically, like, what are those lamps doing?
It's giving light.
Oh, where does it say it?
Versus, like, maybe a regular tree is going to give shade, but this tree is going to give light, and that's kind of anti.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right?
man.
Oh,
we could even go into a whole Genesis 3 thing there.
Sure.
Make it 7 lamps and set them up on it so that they light the space in front of it.
Yes. So what is giving light, man? I'm trying not to be too demanding here, but like let's get really specific. So there's the oil, there's the wick, and then light is being produced. What's the process that creates the light?
Well,
Like you're having to actually light the wicks. Like it talks about the wicks and the
Sure. But
the wick trimmers and the
fire itself.
yes, the fire itself. The fire itself. Now, when you think about a little tree-like plant, branches going out, and there's fire on it.
Oh my gosh!
What does that make you think of?
Bush.
The burning bush, yeah. And where was the burning bush again?
In the desert by a mountain, right?
On a mountain.
On a mountain. It was on a mountain?
I believe, yeah. It was on a mountain, a very important mountain.
Yeah, it was Mount Sinai. I should have just went with that originally. I'm like, he doesn't want me to do the Sinai connection. So I was like, that's not what he's talking about.
No, it's the Sinai connection.
You overthinking it again. Gosh dang it.
Yeah, don't overthink it. Yeah, this is, I mean, I'm sure we could go, we could make this the tree of life. We could go all sorts of directions with this. But if we look at this and we say like, oh, okay, this is a organic bush thing and it's on fire, and just like the bush, it isn't consumed, but it's on fire, and then we have that mixed with God's presence and all this stuff, and it's, to me, that that's a tasty little gumbo there that works. So, but what do we do with that? I mean, like, okay, we got to the big climax. Oh, we found the light from day one here at the end of Exodus 25. What does that do for us?
Sorry, I'm just looking at Exodus 3 to verify that this burning bush was actually on the mountain. I don't know that it was on the mountain. It was at the mountain, which I didn't realize that either, actually.
Well, what's the sign of the bush? God gives Moses a sign.
That it doesn't burn up?
No, it's a little bit after that. Moses is kind of pushing back against God.
Oh, quite a bit after that.
He has him put his hand in, he throws a staff on the ground. He puts his hand inside his cloak. Is that what you're going for?
Nope. God says, the sign I'm going to give to you is that you're going to come back to this mountain.
Oh,
you're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
worship here.
Oh, snap. He was answering you. I thought he was ignoring you, Brent, but he was actually, whoa, snap, mic drop. Gotcha. Boom.
And where is Moses right now when God is telling him all this?
Ah, gosh, dang it, Bossé, man.
He's on the mountain. He's living the sign that God gave him.
Yeah, yep.
You might need some new co-hosts.
There was something else you mentioned earlier, Brent, about how the lamp gives light to what's in front of it, or I think literally in Hebrew it says toward its face.
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, like that kind of does that strike anyone else as a little obvious? Like, oh wow, the lamp lights up the thing in front of it. That's
why would you need to say that?
I really needed God to tell Moses that. Yeah.
Yeah. What is he expecting Moses to do?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got to make sure to tell him, like, this is to light up what's in front of it. Like, is he going to put a... I don't know. All
right. Well, to solve this, we're going to have to go back to our word of the episode, tavnit. Remember tavnit? Those of you who remembered the word tavnit can go have a snack now. Yeah. Do you remember what the word tavnit meant?
The pattern word that Brent was asking about.
Pattern, yes. And where did we hear pattern the second time?
The very end of the passage.
The very, very end, the very last verse. See?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. See and make according to the tavnit that you are shown or saw on the mountain. We have the word saw there twice, 2 times. God really wants him looking.
Huh.
And not just looking at what's in front of him. He's reminding him to remember what he saw on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So this lamp is supposed to remind him of what he saw on the mountain. And it also is going to be reminding him of the burning bush that he found near Sinai or on Sinai, undetermined. That was promising him that he would come to this moment. Mm-hmm. So if we've gotten to this point where jumping back into that day one mindset, I'm starting in darkness and chaos, but because God's been there for me. I remember my story. I have these testimonies. So I know God's presence is there. And when I know God's presence is there, that's nourishing for me. And now, what does that lamp do? It takes that nourishment, and what does it do? It shines light toward wherever its face is looking, which for me, what that tells me is that when I am out in the world, I'm nourished. I'm good. I know God's with me, so I'm good. And whatever I'm looking at, what kind of light am I casting toward it? Am I doing, we talked about why did God have to say this? Well, God does have to say it to us because we can receive that light and forget to be what we saw on the mountain. God said it twice. The lamp is we're supposed to remember what it looks like. We're supposed to remember what that burning bush looked like so that when we leave Sinai and come back down, our faces look like the burning bush. We can bring Sinai to other people and say, hey, maybe you are just a runaway slave. Maybe you're a guy who just, murdered a slave master and are wandering in the desert and all that. You're going to come back here one day and you're going to see God. Like that idea of both representing what God's presence is like on the mountain and also that at the same time representing a promise that that person who you're looking at, who you're shedding light toward, that they can also meet God, that they can also partner with God. That is what we're being called to here. And that's why tavnit is the most important word here. At the very beginning of the chapter, God says everything needs to be made according to this tavnit, according to this pattern, built in this way. Tavnit, it refers to like building. We are supposed to build what God shows us on Sinai. We should be hearing kingdom talk here. Like, we witness kingdom. We receive nourishment from God's presence. And we could just go about our lives, but we're supposed to take that light and not just light our own path, but use that light to bring Sinai, to bring God's presence to other people, to help them gain that kind of relationship of truth, of understanding let's just think about this practically. Like, when we go to other people and we reveal the truth of like, hey, you weren't meant to just work and be productive. You're worthwhile and valuable on your own. That's helping them be in a more truthful relationship with themselves and the world, right? Like that's rebuilding Sinai. That's giving people the light of that lamp.
So, yeah, and I was channeling my Brian David that whole time going, so we got a story that starts with something and we got a story that ends with something.
I was thinking the same thing.
And then we got stories of, I wasn't in love with the thing about testimonies. And then you made the lamp Moshe's testimony. Mm-hmm. So we have testimonies on either side and the table of presence in the middle. And I'm just thinking this out loud. I don't know if there's a chiasm. I can't speak to that. But if there's a chiasm here, it would reinforce your point of when we have our testimonies intact, the testimonies of the people, our corporate community, the testimonies of myself as an individual, testimonies of our leaders, we usher people into the presence of God. That is the light that enables people to find the presence of God in whatever chaotic darkness they might be in.
And you know what, Marty, you picked up on a really good thing, that like the lamp was also Moshe's witness, but think about it too. What do we have in the ark again? We have bread, we have a staff with the almond branch, and then we have these testimonies that are like the marriage between us and God. Right. And then what do we have in we have bread, we have the menorah, which it literally says is modeled after almond branches. And then we have God's presence in that part, in the inner part of the house. The ark is also a miniature of the whole thing. This is the fractal thing I was talking about. Like, inside the ark is also like a representation of the entire tent shrunk down.
Yeah.
Right now, Brian David is doing his walk through the neighborhood that he talked about on his episode, and he was screaming like 10 minutes ago, almonds, chiasm, almonds, and the neighbors are calling the cops. That's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah, so in short, I would not be surprised at all if there's some chiastic stuff going on here.
Good golly, man. That's great.
And the pattern is like as much about the relationships as it is about the structure itself, if not more than the structure itself.
Sure. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Which is Josh's call, this missional call for us to take testimony. And I was thinking of the prophets, where it says, one of my favorite verses, is it Hosea or Isaiah? One of my favorite passages is, take words with you. Like as you go into and out of captivity, take words with you, take testimonies with you, take God's word with you. That's what brings light into chaos, into suffering, into struggle, into questions and doubt. That's what brings us into the presence of God when we lack it the most.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, that's what I want to do next, is kind of turn more into this like incarnational perspective of like, yeah, that. What are those testimonies? Like you listening to this, what are those testimonies? Is it a physical object? Is it a practice? What is it that actually brings to mind, makes real God's reality?
We talked at some point about standing stones, Josh.
Yes.
This would be that idea of masavot, standing stones.
This would be that idea. But also, you know, we're in a time where it's like we don't have some of the benefits, like, right? We don't have the same genealogical tradition, like my great granddad's staff with a flower on it. Maybe that didn't make its way to me, you know.
Yep.
Maybe I don't have that, and that's where I think, you know, a lot of us might just be like, well, I don't know what those are. I really don't know what those are. And honestly, like there might be people out there who haven't had as many of those experiences. And if they did, like maybe there wasn't a convenient way to like summarize it into something small, but yeah, like take time to think about that. And like, if you're really struggling and thinking like, okay, what is a testimony? A testimony is something that speaks. It is God's voice saying, let there be light. Like when you've had those experiences, when you've had an experience of God speaking, of that light kind of bursting on you, that moment of epiphany, whatever it looked like, that moment of peace, find a way to commemorate it. Make up a ritual, like whatever it is that can put you in that moment, that can put you in touch with that, those are the words you take with you, the words that speak to you. We get too focused on, like, you know, the right words or things like that. Like find the words, find the tangible things that actually speak to you, that God is there, even in the darkness, even when it's rough. And when you, and like what Marty was saying, like when you can preserve those, then the rest of this flows out of that. Then you get to the nourishing part, because once you kind of get a sense of like, okay, what is something, what is an object, what is a Bible verse, what is a particular spiritual practice, or even something ritualistic. Maybe you visit someone's grave who is very important to you. Maybe you say a specific prayer at a certain time of day. Maybe you I don't know, maybe you pick up a leaf off the ground. Like it can be anything, because God can speak from anywhere. But what is that, and how do you actually engage with that in a nourishing way, in a way that like gives you life? Maybe those are the same things. Maybe the testimonies are your bread. Maybe one leads to the other. But think about that. What are the tangible things that nourish your spirit genuinely? And then finally, of course, we get to the lamp part, the menorah. How do those things help you show people that moment of meeting God in the desert? How do you recreate that for them in a moment? And how do you do that with just your presence? Like the light that just goes out in front of you. Just spend some time thinking about that. But more importantly, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And we have to remember that God didn't just create this stuff and, dust off his hands and walk away. He took all these things and then he wove them into a dance, a cycle. So, this isn't just like a laundry list of like, hey, do these 3 things before the next episode and I'll be checking your work. Like, no, these are things to help you on the path, and they need to work in that cycle of light and darkness, day and night. We spend some time with our testimonies when we're struggling. Then we find something to nourish us so we can have the strength to then go and give that to others and give them light. And then, on and on and on. It's not just staying in one place where we have to weave it together. We have to find that restful, intentional rhythm, that intentional relationship. And that's where I hope for most of you, this isn't hard. Like this really shouldn't be hard, like in a sense of like, don't be, straining yourself to do this, but it is something that requires some intention to like produce fruit.
Yeah, I think of like specifically with the idea of incarnating God's presence for others, God's cycle of just being present in one moment and speaking in the next moment, like knowing when to speak and when just to be present.
Yeah.
And it's not hard to speak. It's not hard to, maybe for some people it's hard not to speak. For some people it is hard to speak. But like those
Yeah.
2 things on their own are not necessarily that difficult, but knowing when to do each of them is the challenge.
And the real key is like there's a level of this that like, yeah, it requires some soul searching, but at the end of the day, it's pretty simple because like whatever God has said to you that gave you light and life, that'll probably help someone else. Maybe not everyone, maybe not in their specific situation, but that's what you share. You don't have to come up with some brilliant rethinking of it. Like you just have to follow the thing that speaks to you. You just have to listen. And like to use an example from my own life, like I remember there was this one moment where I was really wrestling with some stuff. I won't go into it, but it was the part of the story where after Yaakov wrestles with the angel and he gets a new name, Israel, and then I'm not sure if it's a chapter or a couple chapters later, God comes back and calls Yaakov by his new name. And it's a little strange because it's like, okay, wait, he was already renamed. Like, what's this double renaming thing? And God just spoke out of it. And God's like, I care enough about everything about you that I would come down to earth just to say your name in your presence. Like just to name you. Like that's not some bureaucratic, like, oh, we got to update Josh's heavenly form to have this new name. It's like, no, I would visit you just to call you this new name. And that spoke to me. I don't know if that'll speak to others right now, but I know that for myself, when I'm with people that are struggling, I think about that and I think, okay, how can I just name who they are or what they're going through and just be there and show up and show them that I want to be there just to see who they are, just to impart their name to them. That's something that like I haven't had to, like I do a lot of analysis and stuff for the text, but I didn't have to analyze that. That was just something that spoke and I had to listen to it. And then I had to keep listening to it. And that's really all it takes.
Okay, so to close, Josh, I would like to read, I'm going to read the notes you have in this document in front of us.
Okay, great.
Just to review these 4 things that you talked about, because you said them, but I think the application is so good. I want to just concisely review them one more time. You talked about testimonies, you talked about bread, you talked about lamp, and you talked about the dance. You said testimonies. What are the physical objects or practices that remind you of the felt reality of God's presence, even in times of darkness? You asked a question about bread. What tangible actions, spaces, or objects genuinely nourish your spirit? These are great reflection questions. Lamp. How are you turning these personal spiritual tools outward? Incarnating God's... I mean, you just gave us an example of that. You had an experience. You had a testimony. It nourished your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're turning that outward, Josh, to hopefully be a nourishment to others.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the dance. How can these things be woven together into a natural, restful, intentional relationship? How can these things be this breathing in and out? This, I just thought those were excellent reflection points, and
thank you.
Wanted to reiterate those one last time.
Yep. And remember, like, that this is what every day is going to be about. Like, listening to God speak, trusting in that, like keeping those things precious, finding life in that, and then passing that life on.
Goodness, this is very like Impact Campus Ministry special sauce right now. This is good.
Oh, Marty, my brain is too full for you to say that phrase right now. We got to get out of here.
All right.
I apparently need to go read some more Moses history, because I had definitely fuzzed away a lot of the details of that story. So I got to do some review and attempt to be ready for our next episode. So we'll see how that goes.
Brilliant. I love it.
But like I said, we will try to get a presentation together with some stuff. So I guess check that out and find out what we came up with. But you can find all that at bamondiscipleship.com. You guys know how to get a hold of us. Let's just close it out. Thanks for joining us on the Bama Podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.